Back to Coast, George Norrie with you. Joshua P. Warren back with us. Spent more than 20 years breaking ground in the paranormal, and he does the best on it. Mr. Warren, welcome back.
Well, thank you, George. It is always a thrill to be with you.
How have you been?
I have been doing very well. I haven't melted yet, despite the fact I'm here in Las Vegas. And I was just telling Tom off the air, oddly enough, I am cold here more often than I'm hot because people go so overboard with the air conditioning. So I don't know whether to wear short sleeves or long sleeves, but I've been out in the desert hunting UFOs. I have new haunted objects in my house, which is something that I try to avoid, but they just keep finding a way here. And I have a brand new laboratory to produce sigils. So there's a lot happening right now.
We'll get into sigils in a moment. Your land is close to Area 51, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Rachel, Nevada is the settlement closest to Area 51. And last year, I purchased acres of land when they, much to my surprise, came up for sale right there near the boundary of Area 51. And I got it strictly to do experiments and research. I want to make it very clear. I am absolutely doing nothing to impose upon the government work. I'm not trying to snoop into what they're doing or to interfere or trespass. I just know that that entire area has a paranormal history going back thousands of years. I mean, there are petroglyphs around there of what is called Piranagat Man, which looks like an alien wearing this bizarre, astronaut costume or outfit. And the only place you find Piranagat Man is in that area around Area 51. You've got ghost towns there. There's a whole paranormal legacy there, and I think that's one of the reasons that Area 51 was built there. But as you probably know, I've kept you somewhat updated on this. I am currently building, for the first time ever, what is intended to be a portal opening machine. And the plan is to test this out in the desert on my property and to see if I can create some kind of a paranormal effect out in the area around Area 51.
My gosh, Josh, be careful. Who knows what's going to happen with that thing?
Well, I'm going to give you some breaking news on a couple of things here tonight. For one thing, I have a prototype almost finished that's a quarter scale for this machine. And it turns out that building a portal opening machine is not easy.
I would not think so. Gosh.
I figured that might be the case, but I said to myself, this is going to probably take me a few years. I've only been working on this about a year now. And one of the things that has slowed me down was the supply chain, because I need some rather exotic components from various parts of the world. And for people who have no idea what I'm talking about here, I have decided to use everything that I know from doing 30 years of research regarding, well, physics and metaphysics and radionics and psionics and psychotronics and sacred geometry and put it all together into this device, which has some moving parts. And I don't want to, of course, tell people how I'm planning to put all this together. I will someday, especially if it works, or maybe I won't. I might keep it a secret if it works. If it works too well, it might be a dangerous thing. But nonetheless, the other day, and I'm talking about 6 days ago, I did this test where I had two of these components spinning for the first time ever. And as soon as they started spinning, and they made it up to close to the speed that I had in mind, the lights in my facility started blinking, and then there was a knock on my door all at once. And so I shut everything down. It was kind of jarring because I wasn't sure what was happening. The lights blink, and then there's a knock on the door. So I turned everything off. I went to the door. I opened it. There was nobody out there. And so I realized at that point that something was happening. Okay, I don't know what, and that's the problem when you start cranking up these things. You're allowing some kind of energy to start entering, and that's why I'm doing this very, very, very gradually so that I can pull the plug at any moment if I don't like what's happening. But I'm thinking if all goes well, I might have something that I'm ready to take out into the desert about a year from now.
Let's hope we don't hear a story of you disappearing through a portal and never coming back.
Well, it is certainly interesting that a lot of people disappear here in what is known as the Nevada Triangle. As a matter of fact, there have been more disappearances here than there have been in the so-called Bermuda Triangle. And, of course, I used to live in the Bermuda Triangle and do research there. But the Nevada Triangle goes from Las Vegas up to Reno and then over to California, as a matter of fact, Fresno. And so in that space, I think about over 2,000 airplanes have vanished over the past 60 years. And if you do the math on that, I forget, it's like, 2 or 3 a month. I mean, it's just Steve Fawcett disappeared in that area. And so there is a large history. And as a matter of fact, there's a whole page on the Las Vegas Police Department website about how many people vanish in Las Vegas every single day. So there's this big phenomenon of people and things vanishing in the Nevada Triangle, and it makes me wonder if that's part of what these natural portals do. And when you crank up one of these machines that sort of enhances that, if that's a risk you're taking, you might slip into some other realm, and who knows what that realm might be.
Hey, give us an update before we get into sigils in your work on Robert the Haunted Doll.
I'm so glad that you asked me all those years ago to go investigate Robert the Haunted Doll. Because, before I did that, George, I just found it very difficult to believe that a doll could come to life and start moving around. And after I went down there to Key West, I came back with a whole new opinion, because I do believe that there are dolls now, just like Robert, that are able to sometimes become, well, I don't know if possessed is the right word, but they certainly seem like it. They become somehow animated, almost like that a human body becomes animated by a soul or a spirit. And, when I went down there, people were terrified of Robert. And I've continued researching him since then. I even wrote a little book about him called Don't Play with Robert, which is on my website, joshuapwarren.com. And the thing I learned was that, for one thing, people who actually started experiencing him coming to life became so shocked by it and so frightened that they started treating him much more respectfully. And so now we have far less incidents than we did before with people having bad luck, because they're doing what he wants. They are being respectful. They're asking his permission before they take a picture of him. But because of doing that investigation, and because of me coming to the realization that there is something believable about this, well, other haunted dolls have kind of made their way into my life. And I have a friend, I won't use his name on the air without his permission, but he had a doll in his house that his brother picked up from an antique store. And then in less than a month, I believe, his brother was found dead in his room, and the doll was a couple feet away. And his brother was middle-aged. So the doll ended up in his mother's bedroom, and in a few months later, she was dead with the doll sitting next to her. So he turned around and gave this doll to me, and I took it very reluctantly, and I immediately put it in a storage unit, so I did not bring it into my home. But occasionally here in Las Vegas, we do produce we call it a Paranormal Vegas show, where we take out haunted and cursed and charmed objects, and so sometimes we bring this doll out for that. But, I think it's safe to report that Robert is doing well, but there are other haunted dolls out there. It's true, it's real, and I think if you're going to study them, keep them at a distance. Do not bring them into your home, because sometimes things that seem to be inanimate can become animate, and we don't understand how that process works. But I'm very particular about things I bring into my house these days. Is
Robert still in that glass case down there?
Yes, he is. He's still in the glass case at the East Fort Martello Museum, and he's treated like a king. And, in fact, I'm going to use this as a great excuse to tell my wife I need to fly back to Key West and do an investigation. I'll say, George Norrie needs me to do another investigation. That's one of my favorite places. I love Key West. And when you go down there, there's such a rich history and a lot of ghost stories, of course. And so, sure enough, when you walk into the room where Robert is located, he's sitting there in a little chair. He looks very peaceful. To me, I think he has kind of a little smile on his face. Some people think it looks more like a smirk. Some people think he looks like he's growling. So maybe he does a little, the expression varies from person to person. But I was really lucky because when I went down there to do that investigation all those years ago, they actually agreed to remove this glass case from around him for the first time in 4 years. And I had a UV light with me that I shined on him, and I suppose I was the first person to do that because UV doesn't make it through glass. And when I shined this UV light on him, a little symbol appeared on his sleeve, which was otherwise invisible. And that is why we think he now had some kind of a magical symbol or sigil put on his sleeve. And that was one of the first things that got me into the sigil research. So I think whoever modified Robert the doll, because he was originally like a rare German Steiff doll, apparently, but whoever modified him, I believe they put him through some kind of a ritual, and they sealed it, which that's what sigil means. Sigil is Latin. It's for seal. And so they sealed it with one of these marks, and whatever process they used is what gave him life.
This is truly remarkable. And what got Robert to be haunted in the first place?
Well, the idea behind that particular case is that the family that purchased him was a very prominent family there in Key West, and they had a woman who worked for them. She was, basically a servant of some kind. She apparently had a heritage that was connected to the islands because, obviously we're talking about Key West, so you're very close to all of the Caribbean area and a lot of the places we hear all the time about even Haiti, where voodoo and zombies and all that kind of thing is so prominent. And so at a certain point, and this is pretty well documented in some books out there, at a certain point, there was a falling out between this woman who was their servant and the family. And she was the main caretaker of their little boy.
Uh-huh.
And his name was Robert Otto. And so he loved this doll that they also named Robert. His name was Robert, and this doll that was almost as big as him was named Robert. And so it is believed that at some point, and we're not sure exactly what the falling out was over, but at some point she took that doll and almost treated it as if it were a large voodoo doll of the little boy. And she did something that did not harm the little boy, so to speak, but it made him absolutely obsessed with the doll to the point that over time it consumed him, and you could say that in the long run it did hurt him psychologically. It kind of eventually ran the family into the ground because he was attached to this doll until he was an adult. But that was the whole stem of this situation, is this problem between the little boy, Robert's family, and this woman from the islands.
Now, he wasn't haunted prior to that, was he?
No, there's no reason to believe that. As a matter of fact, the original Steiff doll, though, it did look pretty creepy. It had a little clown outfit on it, and I know you love clowns.
Oh, yeah. They were tops on my list.
If you think Robert looks creepy now, George, if you had an illustration, and I'm sure they're out there, of how he originally looked, you would probably find him even spookier because, yeah, he had like a little pointy hat and an outfit that had little, I think they call them like pom-poms or whatever, and just a little creepy-looking clown dude. But, see, the little boy, Robert the little boy, he was into sailors and the sea and all that, and so the clown outfit was transformed into a little sailor outfit, and then the Robert, the little boy, had his favorite animal, which was lions, and so they got a little stuffed lion, and they added that to Robert the doll. And so all these little pieces were put together to personalize the doll so that now it not only has the name of the little boy, but it's dressed the way the little boy would like to be dressed. It's got the little lion that the little boy would like to play with. And they did everything possible, at least this woman did everything possible, in order to capture the essence, the very spirit of this child in this doll, and then to use it in probably ways that we'll never even understand to manipulate that whole family.
Josh, do you find that during times of strife worldwide, the episodes of paranormal activity increases?
Yes, absolutely. The thing about paranormal activity is, to a certain extent, a lot of it is human-based. In other words, humans are very powerful batteries. And that's why we're so extraordinary and mysterious, because even though we talk all the time about AI, there's still nothing more complex and amazing than the human brain. And we still don't understand exactly the mind-body connection, especially the mind-body environment connection, which also ties into this idea that it's very mysterious that dolls can sometimes take on life. But getting back to humans, we are electrical machines, and you can measure the human bioenergy field. When a person is calm and relaxed, the bioenergy field around the person is calm and relaxed. But if you jump out and go, boo, then all of a sudden there is a huge surge of energy that just shoots out like lightning bolts in all directions, and you can feel it. You feel your heart jump in your chest. And so when people are stressed, they start producing this very high frequency or very low frequency, depending on how they process stress, these extreme biofrequencies that start to irritate all the electrical and electromagnetic, electrostatic fields in an entire environment. And when you start rattling up an environment, that's when paranormal phenomena begins to happen. And so calm people oftentimes will not even notice something paranormal going on in their lives. But people who are high-strung, maybe more neurotic, especially people who are prone to be, stressed out all the time. I mean, they are, in some cases, a lot more aware of what's going on, but I think they can also create it because their energy is being expressed in such a way that it can not only trigger things in an almost telekinetic way, but sometimes it kills them. That's why they have heart attacks. They don't live as long because they just wear themselves out.
Joshua, before you tell us the breaking news on sigils, explain what a sigil is.
Well, a sigil is a magical symbol. They go back thousands of years. You could even say something like the Egyptian Ankh is a type of sigil. And here's a good example of why a sigil may work to produce some kind of a metaphysical or spiritual effect. People almost every night listen to your voice, George. And so if a person goes out and purchases a copy of one of your books, like Worker in the Light, and starts reading it, even though these words are just ink on paper, the person probably is actually hearing your voice speak those words. That's what's happening mentally. You're talking to the person using these symbols, and that's what words, printed words are. And so I think that sigils do a similar thing, except it transcends language. A sigil is often an abstract image that seems to capture a certain energy pattern and acts almost as an antenna for it. And so I started experimenting by making sigils using a particular method that I invented called paracymatics. And cymatics is where you play a tone or some sound in sand or water or some kind of a flexible fluid medium, and it produces all of these very interesting patterns and forms. And when I was in Puerto Rico, I started getting water from the Bermuda Triangle and sand from the beaches and playing tones to see the patterns they would make. And then I thought, what if I start injecting messages into these tones? So I got one, and I said, I sat down in front of a microphone, and I recorded my voice saying, I am attracting money. And then I played that tone in a cup of water, and then I used a UV light and an infrared light and a laser and 3 different cameras to pick up the details of what pattern appeared in the water. After I photographed that, then I put it into a computer, highlighted it, and then gave it to my wife, Lauren, who's a great artist, and had her just do an outline of the pattern that appeared, and it became a little symbol. And this is probably 6 years ago. I went on Coast to Coast AM, and I talked about this, and we put the money sigil on your website there at coasttocoastam.com just for free. And I said, look, just look at this as often as you can throughout the day, whether it's on your phone or you print it out and you place it somewhere. Just be exposed to this. And in less than a month, people were emailing me pictures of this thing tattooed on themselves, George. Because
wow.
they won so much money. They had unexpected money coming in from all kinds of different sources. And so I started making more of these sigils. And as a matter of fact, if you go right now to coasttocoastam.com, you'll see there on the homepage, Lex has posted 3 sigils. There is the original money sigil that we talked about 6 years ago, but this is currently the only place in the world where you will find a brand new sigil that we created just for this show. It is the Luck sigil. And we took the money sigil and combined it with the Luck sigil to produce a combined money and luck sigil. So if you go to coasttocoastam.com, all you have to do is just, like I say, download whatever picture you're interested in. One is for money, the other's for luck, the other's a combo. Experiment with all 3, see what it does for you. But what is also really fascinating about all this is you're an integral part of this whole story, George, because I decided at one point that I was going to make, for the first time ever, a personalized sigil. And you invited me to come onto your show, Beyond Belief. Mm-hmm. And so I thought a fun thing to do would be to take your name and likeness and create a sigil for George Noory. And I presented this to you on the show. And after that, you said that your personalized sigil had some positive effects in your life, correct?
That's right. Absolutely. And I have it now in my office in Los Angeles up on my bulletin board. And I also made a copy of it, and I have it in my wallet.
Good, because I believe that when you have a personalized sigil made from your name like that, and with you in mind, it's almost like the S on Superman's chest. You know, Superman is always Superman, even when he's not wearing his outfit. But when he gets that outfit on and he's got that big S, that S is a sigil. It's almost like that it enhances your biofield. It enhances your persona. And so people have been asking me for years to make a personalized sigil. And I've said, gosh, that I don't have the setup to do that. You know, it's a lot of work to make one sigil, and to take requests to do a sigil for one person, it's too elaborate. Well, last year I bought my new house, my new lab, my new workshop. I bought all this stuff here in Las Vegas, and just a few months ago, I finally was able to set up this thing I've been dreaming of for years. It is called the Sigil Lab, and right now I am taking requests to create a personalized custom sigil for anyone listening. We take your name, and I will speak your name into a microphone, and then it goes through this process. We extract the pattern that appears in the water, and whatever appears is whatever appears. It's whatever Mother Nature gives us, and this is turned into your own sigil, which is sent to you as an individual, unique work of art. And I think this is a perfect combo of art and science. And so for those of you who wonder if there's any truth to this, look, the sigil at coasttocoastam.com is free. Go there, use the money sigil, use the luck sigil. But if you start finding that you want to go further with this, if you go right now to thesigillab.com, and sigil is spelled S-I-G-I-L, thesigillab.com, then you will be able to request one made for yourself with your own name. And there's also a link to a bunch of other free ones that are there as well. If you just go to the section that says something along the lines of, click here for more info on paracymatic sigils. But so far, we've done hundreds of these just over the past few months.
Wow.
And I could sit here for an hour and tell you stories. I don't want this show to just be a big commercial, but I'm just telling you, it's just at some point I got to put all these testimonials together, and if it works, and it also has a connection to this thing called an electrum ring, which that's a whole other conversation we can get into on another occasion, or we can talk about it if you'd like. But the bottom line is I'm starting a whole manifestation society and people who are using sigils and electrum rings, and we are going to start working together to try to solve some of the world's problems. And, I don't talk about politics. I keep that to myself. People hear enough of that all the time. But we all have things that we can improve that we would all like to see better in society. And whether you're out there trying to manifest spooky things and aliens and ghosts or Bigfoot or psychic stuff, or you're trying to manifest $1 million for yourself or a great partner or a successful family, we're all trying to manifest something. And that's what I think is so fascinating about understanding that mind-body-environment relationship.
How do these symbols work, Josh? What makes them happen?
I feel like that if you actually take if you want to go back to the beginning, in the beginning, there is language used even in books like the Bible, saying that the Word, Jesus was the Word, and the Word was God. I forget the exact quote, but that basically words are vibrations. And some words are very obvious examples of vibrations. Onomatopoeia, I think they call it, where you have some words that actually emulate a natural sound, like a cannon goes boom,
right,
a cow goes moo, But then you have how this very weird and mysterious process by which sounds got sort of customized into different languages, and words mean different things to different people. And so, like, for example, if I come up to you and I say something mean to you in, let's say, German, but you don't speak German, you're not going to react to it. But there are certain words that transcend cultures. For example, the word no, you'll find sounds very, very similar in most cultures around the world. No, nine, ni. So there is some kind of a magic in the vibration of things, and that's the most basic way that we communicate. And when you speak a word, and that vibration actually creates a pattern, well, then that pattern is a representation of that word. And what you end up with is almost a very basic form of broadcasting. That it's like you can take that vibration, turn it into a symbol, and then you could actually play that symbol, and you could retract the word from it. It works both ways. I mean, like, for example, look at the grooves on a phonograph. It's the same thing. You speak a word on one of the old phonographs, and it carves a certain type of a pattern in the grooves. And then you reverse that process, and you can hear Thomas Edison saying, "Mary had a little lamb." And so sigils they somehow capture the essence of the thought that was put into them, even if it's abstract on the surface. And so if I put a message into a symbol, and you expose yourself to that symbol over and over and over, it starts to somehow affect your psyche, and it starts to somehow either make you manifest these things that you want, or it somehow causes a change in the relationship that you have with the world that we don't understand. People talk about this being a holographic world. And this is why that it's almost a form of ritual where you're looking through this over and over again. You're going through this process, and that's how I think they work. But I mentioned the word ritual there, and I do have a very weird story. I had a dream back in June, and I can't tell you for sure, George, whether or not it was a dream. It was a dream-like experience. I'm a very vivid dreamer, but I want to tell everybody this because in the experience, I was told to teach people this. So I woke up in the middle of the night, I believe, and again, I'm not going to tell you this happened. I can't tell the difference between this being a dream and not being a dream. I was in a dark room, and there was a woman standing in front of me, and she was dimly lit. She was pale. She had shoulder-length, light-colored hair, nondescript shirt, and she was standing next to a mirror. And instantly, it reminded me of a psychomantium. And it was really creepy, and I was kind of getting freaked out. And I was like, where am I? Who are you? And this woman said to me, I am here to teach you the pit of the black abyss.
The pit of the black abyss. What the heck is that?
That's what I said. I didn't even like the sound of it. And I said, what is the pit of the black abyss? And she said to me, you can use this, and it will help you when you need it. She then showed me this process. And after she showed me this exercise, a man appeared. And he was bald and also kind of dimly lit. And he looked at me and he said, this will only produce goodness, and you can teach others. And then I woke up. And I don't usually wake up and write things down, but in this case, I said, I have to write this down. I wrote down the words, the pit of the black abyss. I wasn't even sure if I would remember what it meant the next morning. When I woke up the next morning, I remembered everything. And the first thing I did was jump on the internet, and I Googled, in quotations, the pit of the black abyss.
Does it pop up?
Nothing popped up. Zero. Can you believe that? I mean, it seems like every combination of everything you can think of at this point should pop up on the internet, right?
You would think.
It brought up nothing because I was wondering, is this something stuck in my subliminal consciousness? You know, the pit of the black, is it a TV show or is it a book? And there was almost like an
sounds like a poem.
Like a what?
A poem.
Yeah, well, you kind of like an Edgar Allan Poe poem, right?
Exactly.
And so, but I thought maybe something stuck in my psyche, and no, this is something brand new. So I can either start telling you what this process is now, or we can use this as a cliffhanger, and I can tell everybody after the break. What would you prefer, George?
You'll have to use it as a cliffhanger because we're off in about 40 seconds, my friend.
Well, sorry, folks, you're going to have to keep listening to the show because you want to hear this. It's so simple. Everybody can do it. But I'll tell you what happened when I tried it. I don't know exactly how it works. I have some theories, but I was told this will help you.
What did you find out about the pit of the black abyss?
All right. Before I tell you the technique, I just want to say right up front here, again, George, I want to thank you and Tom and everybody at the Coast to Coast AM family for having me and my show Strange Things on the Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. I absolutely love it. As Tom said before, go to coasttocoastam.com. You can click the link at the top that says podcast, and you'll find me there along with the other hosts. And to all of those who listen to my show, Agiatato Zume. That is our magic word on the show. Now, that said, okay, Pit of the Black Abyss. Again, this kind of reminds me somewhat of a psychomantium setup because you want to go into a dim room with a mirror. But unlike the psychomantium, where you sit maybe 3 or 4 feet away, in this case, you want to get right up next to the mirror so that you are looking into your own pupils just a few inches from the mirror. And when you do this, you need to have a sheet of paper in front of you and some type of a writing or drawing utensil. Could be a pen, a pencil, doesn't matter. So here you are, and also the lighting doesn't matter. That you can use a candle or whatever you have, as long as it's just dim. You want to, however, be able to look directly into your own pupils. It's almost like staring into black holes in outer space. So as you stare into your own pupils, it's okay to blink, but try to resist blinking if you can. The idea is for you to keep looking deeper and deeper and deeper into that reflection of your own pupils. Imagine that these are the abysses, and you're going as far as you can. Now, as you do this, you have your writing utensil in your hand, and without looking at it, you allow your hand to start making circles. And so the deeper you go, the more circles you draw. You're essentially creating what might turn out to look like a big black blob or a dot of some kind. And you do this as long as you want. It can take you 5 minutes. It might take you 10 minutes, but eventually, probably within 10 minutes at the most, you're going to go as deep as you can into those pupils. And at that point, you stop, you close your eyes, and you take a deep breath. You detach yourself, and you look at what you've created. Now, when you look down, you might be surprised. You may see something that looks like a perfect circle. You might see something that has even a weird message. In my particular case, I guess my hand, the first time I did this, drifted a little bit from left to right, so it looked a little bit more like a cylinder than a circle. But nonetheless, now you have this piece of paper which has got this blob that you have created as you were psychologically plumbing the depths of whatever was within your own pupils. Now, this is where it gets really weird and pretty awesome as well. This drawing that you have just created is now a psychic battery. And what you want to do is just fold it up, and you can put it away somewhere special to you, somewhere safe, put it in a drawer, or you can carry it with you. It lasts forever, but whenever you need something to help you, when you need a boost, when you need a miracle, when you need some kind of extra energy from the universe, you take that piece of paper out and you tear it in half right down the middle of that pattern and release whatever you put in there. Boom. It's like an explosion. And that is going to create this ripple, this spiritual ripple, and it's going to super boost whatever it is that you're trying to achieve at that moment. And the first time I did this, and of course I'm looking at this and I'm saying, this kind of makes sense to me, but I'm a weird guy. But it also seems kind of crazy. How am I going to test this out? I'm always experimenting with so many things. This was going to be very weird for me because I was thinking, like, how am I going to differentiate this from other things? Well, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I really do not mean to reduce everything down to gambling, but I do live in Las Vegas, and that night I had a friend coming into town, and he was taking me and my wife out to dinner. So I brought this thing with me, and as you can imagine the end of this story, after dinner we went to a casino. I put $20 in. I hit the button a few times. Nothing was happening. I told them what I was going to do. I took out the paper. I tore it in half, hit the button, and boom, I hit a bunch of money. And since then, I've only used this method a couple more times. One time I did it, and I don't like to talk about health because I'm not a physician and I'm not qualified to give that kind of advice. But I did use it one time when I needed a boost in that department, and then I used it another time to help somebody else out. And this is still really new to me, and I think it's going to be incredibly exciting to put this information out there through Coast to Coast AM and to see what all of the listeners do with this and what kind of feedback I get. And you can always contact me through my website, JoshuaPWarren.com. There's no period after the P when you put that in there. And I read every single email. I can't answer everyone, but I look forward to seeing what reports I have for you from doing what they said, George, and that is to teach others this strange method.
Good for you. Now, what is the Apex machine you've been working on?
Oh, boy. The Apex machine. You know what? There are so many different ways of trying to manifest what you want that I always say to people, look, some things will connect with you and some things will not. Some people like the idea of a machine that has an input plate, an output plate, and knobs. Some people don't like that. They don't like the technical stuff. They prefer a wand, or they want a crystal, and look, I don't know how these things work. If they are the world's best placebos, that's fine. If they work, who cares? But you got to find the thing that works for you. And I have always had enormous success with wishing machines. And for many, many years, I guess I started experimenting with wishing machines. Well, I first learned about them when I was a teenager. When I was in my early 20s, I finally bought one. And the first thing I did was wish for my money back, and I got it back. So when you get these machines, like that connects with me. Believe it or not, I actually have a fairly logical engineering type mind. You wouldn't believe it from listening to this interview, but I like the idea of like, here's my input plate, here's my output plate, here's how I tune this machine. There's a circuit inside. That gives me satisfaction. So Dr. Mulder and I, for many years have been doing what we call the Wishing Machine Project, where we put machines out there and we get feedback from people about what's working for you and what's not. Over the years, we have shipped thousands and thousands of machines all over the world to every culture, and we've been crunching all of this data these years. And this year, we took all that data and we decided to create the fastest manifesting wishing machine that we've ever made. It is called the Apex machine. And what makes it special is not only is it designed as the Rolls Royce. I mean, when you look at this thing, you can tell by the look of the case and everything. But the input plate is actually an orgone accumulator. And that's a whole separate topic for another day, but a lot of people know what I'm talking about. The input plate is an orgone accumulator. The output plate is a mirror, and it's got a genuine Herkimer diamond on it. And the first time I used it, I tuned in something really obscure. I got it, and I said, okay, what's something just out of the blue that could happen to me today? And I know that we were talking about how I know you're not a big fan of clowns, and maybe that's what made me think of this. But I thought, like, okay, I don't go out and encounter clowns every day, so I just tuned in. I will see a clown today. Okay, I don't know why. That was just like some crazy off-the-wall thing that came to me before I went to bed. And the next day, I'm flipping through the channels, and what pops up on the TV is this movie with Robin Williams called Patch Adams, where he is a doctor who dresses up like a clown, and he treats children. And the amazing thing about that is I actually worked on that movie. I was actually in that movie as a featured extra, and I actually have a like 2 seconds on screen with Robin Williams in that movie. And I haven't seen that in forever, and it just gave me goosebumps and cold chills. And I thought there was not only a clown, but a clown that was specifically personalized for me. So I could go on and on with stories, but if you want to see what this thing looks like, just go to theapexmachine.com. Apex is APEX. Go to theapexmachine.com. But so far, this is the fastest manifesting wishing machine we've ever created. So thank you for asking that.
To the phones we go. Joe in the Bronx to get us started. Hey, Joseph, go ahead.
Hey, George, how are you?
Okay.
George, I had a question which is more for you, but Joshua had a hand in it. When you received the gift of a Robert the Clown, a copy of Robert the Clown, what creeped you the most about it, and why did you give it away right away?
Well, because I didn't like it, and it looked evil to me. And we gave it to that woman who still loves it, I think. Remember that, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you did it because if it brings somebody else joy, why not? And she's got a heck of a conversation piece at her house, but sometimes it's good to say like the energy of this thing doesn't work for me, but somebody else will really just connect with it. And do you know, though, George, that is a good question. I mean, do you know the root of why that you have such a dislike for I don't know, like clowns and dolls and things along those lines?
Maybe it was Stephen King's, was it It?
Oh, yeah?
They just look evil to me. I mean, I remember as a little boy, they would look at you with these weird little eyes, and, John Wayne Gacy didn't help out either when he dressed up like a clown.
Yeah, good point.
Joe, did you have a question for Josh?
Yeah, Joshua, what are you going to be working on next? Whether it be in the realm of ghosts or magic or, whatever. I mean, I know you mentioned a portal at near Area 51, but what other project are you working on?
Well, that's my favorite question, and it's also my most difficult question to be asked, because I found out a long time ago that when you start digging into paranormal investigation and paranormal research, ghosts and UFOs and cryptids and psychic phenomena and angels and demons and interdimensional stuff are all kind of connected. And, Joe, I'm glad you asked me this, because over the next year, I'm kind of working on all of that stuff. Again, I'm hoping to make progress, as you said, on this portal device, which I don't even know what the results of that are going to be. And I know people are going to email me and say, "Oh, you're being careless with this stuff," but I'm being as careful as I can. But I also, when it comes to ghosts, I have obtained a wheelchair. And this is actually something that I do have in my house. This is a wheelchair that was on the History Channel, and the owner said that it was used to wheel Franklin D. Roosevelt out to one of his political conventions. And that has an interesting connection to me, because outside of Las Vegas is a little town called Boulder City, and I have a tour there called the Haunted Boulder City Ghost and UFO Tour. And Boulder City was the city that housed the workers for what they called the Boulder Dam, now the Hoover Dam. And Franklin D. Roosevelt was there when they gave he dedicated, the dam, the Hoover Dam, when it opened. And so they're building a visitor center, and they're looking for interesting items. And so I obtained this Franklin D. Roosevelt wheelchair, which is going to end up in the visitor center. By the way, if you're this fall, especially if you're near Boulder City, just go to hauntedbouldercity.com and take the tour. I created it and I own it. And so the wheelchair is in my house, and I've had it only for a few months, and half the time, well, I don't know, maybe half, I'll say more like a third of the time, when I go downstairs, this wheelchair is in a different position. Like it's rolled, I think the farthest I've seen it roll is 4 inches one way or the other. Nothing else in my house has moved. And I know you're thinking, well, Joshua, where's the film footage? I have a camera. I've been collecting footage, and I will get to that in the future when I'm ready to release everything. But I'm studying whether or not this Franklin D. Roosevelt wheelchair is haunted. And the third thing is I have a new kit. This is the last thing I'm going to produce before the end of 2023, a new kit that I'm going to put out, which is something I invented that combines tapping into Wilhelm Reich's orgone energy with chakras in order to boost your personal bioenergy. And this is the metaphysical part. So this is something I'll only be announcing, however, through my free e-newsletter. And, my e-newsletter it's been around a long time. It's very popular. If you go to joshuapwarren.com, it says it's right there on the homepage. Click here for Joshua's free newsletter. I write it with my own fingers, typos and all. It's free and it's spam free. I pay for it, so I don't have to give you any ads or any stuff like that. And I'm going to tell everybody about this new kit. And so basically, I'm working on a portal at Area 51 that will maybe open up a realm to communicate with aliens. I have a haunted FDR wheelchair in my living room, and I have a metaphysical kit coming out this fall. So that's my immediate future. But thanks again, Joe, for the question. I know that was a long answer, but I have life is short, and there aren't enough hours in the day, right?
How long were you in Puerto Rico, Josh?
I explored Puerto Rico for a good 15 years, and I lived there for 5 years. And, I didn't just live around San Juan, where all of the tourists go on the cruise ships. I actually lived in Boca Raton on the southwestern part of the island in Cabo Rojo. And that's, a place that's near like the Laguna Cartagena, where the UFOs are seen all the time going in and out of the water. And there were UFO crashes there. And I even have some UFO crash debris I collected personally from there that's in the Boulder City Chamber of Commerce right now on display, as well as an alien crystal skull that's also at the Chamber of Commerce in Boulder City. And so I miss it. But my goodness, George, as much as I love the Caribbean, when those hurricanes come through, it's just so devastating. I just couldn't. I can't be there full time. It's too heartbreaking.
And they do come through. They come through a lot, don't they?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you can. I had cameras all over that island that were running 24 hours a day. Getting footage of UFOs. You and I worked together on some experiments there, and I was getting great stuff. But when Hurricane Maria came through, and I guess that was 2018 or something like that, I mean, it destroyed all of my stuff. And my stuff was not insured. So.
Devastating, my friend. Let's go to Mayat in New York to get us started here. Hi, Mayat.
Yes. Hey, good morning, gentlemen. I always get in a good mood when I hear Joshua. I have one main question this morning and some requests which perhaps George, Tommy can help me out with. Okay. First, the question is, what is the role of the subconscious? In other words, we don't seem to realize that the subconscious very much creates a reality that we often don't recognize, and its connection to the sigils. Now, and I'll listen over the air to your answer, but the request, I'm the Mayat that some time ago had been eligible for the one free wish, and you directed me on that program to go to your site, and I could not find, I get your newsletter, but I could not find or connect with the voting. So I'm wondering if Tommy would take my email, put a string around your finger, if you would, and maybe you could connect to me and I'm very much interested in getting the machine, especially if it can be programmed by that gentleman who was doing it before. But if you have my question, and George, can Tommy pick up and get my email so that Josh, with the string around his finger, would remember his promise of that one free wish?
Sure. Let's let you hear Josh's response first, then Tom get the email from Mayat. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, Mayat, thank you, first off, for your kind words. I really appreciate that. And you bring up a really good question. What is the role of the subconscious when it comes to the effectiveness of sigils? I think that it's possible that our lives are guided more by the subconscious than the conscious. And I think that even though I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or one of those types of people, they would probably tell you the same, that basically it's almost like that you're haunted in a way by things that you have been exposed to, which make an imprint on your psyche. For example, one of the things that I do for fun, and unfortunately at this point in my life, I'm working way too much, and at some point I'm going to have to pull back and have more fun time. I like to play the piano. And I remember that one time in my life, I was composing a lot of music for the piano, and one of the ladies that I really admired who did a lot of work in that arena, she said, be very careful when you're composing work for the piano because you may not realize it, but you may be basically writing something that you heard 10 or 15 years ago that just got stuck in your head that you can't quite put your finger on. And she was right. And that's kind of a spooky thing because you apparently kind of store everything, so they say, in the subliminal psyche, and there may even be a connection to the Akashic record. Recently George interviewed a lady who was talking about that. So I think that these sigils may somehow be like music. Music is a good analogy. Music is abstract. It transcends language. Sigils are abstract. They transcend language. And it doesn't matter where you're from. If you see a sigil, it seems to give you the same message. That's what I'm finding based on my research. And so I think it does make some kind of an impression in the subliminal. As far as free wishes and that kind of thing, I believe what you might be referring to is that there are times where I say, if you do this or that, if you help me out with a certain project, then something good will happen to you. I don't guarantee free wishes or anything like that. That would be unethical. But I can definitely tell you that if you go to my website, you'll find a lot of free stuff there that is all intended to help you because I believe in karma, and I think that if you do something, if I give you something that helps you, it's going to help me as well, and we all help each other out. And so that's why people who sign up for my free e-newsletter get all kinds of opportunities to participate in really interesting projects that are positive for, I hope, the whole world.
First-time caller John in Wisconsin is with us. Hey, John, go ahead, sir.
Hi there, gentlemen. George, Josh.
Hey, John.
Hope both of you are well. I love your show, George. And my question is to Josh. How could a non-medium or what have you try to connect with spirits or ghosts or those who have passed? I've experienced spirit orbs and even an apparition, and I have astral projected and believe I've met my dead cousin and other relatives in my dreams. I know like Ouija boards can let evil spirits and demons in your life, and because of that I've never used one, but I've always been very interested in trying to connect with spirits and my past loved ones. Any advice?
Yeah, thank you for that question, John. It's funny because some people absolutely do not want to have those types of experiences, and some people like you want more of them. And there are many different things that you can do, but I think the easiest thing that everybody can do for free is if you go to thesigillab.com. There's a section where it says for info it's toward the bottom. It says for more info on paracymatics, click here. When you do that, you're going to find almost 20 free sigils that I've created, and one of them is called attracting paratemporals, which is a word that I use for all types of paranormal beings and paranormal phenomena. I wrote about it in my book called The Secret Wisdom of Kukulkan, which is on Amazon. And if you get that attracting paratemporals sigil, you will be surprised by what starts happening very quickly in your life. As a matter of fact, it's just like all the other sigils. You'll see it there. You click on it. You get an enlarged version of it. And then all you have to do is just put it on your phone or your tab or print it out and look at it as often as possible. And you will start having these experiences. There's also one right next to it for stopping that kind of thing, for neutralizing paratemporal and paranormal experiences. So both of those things are there for free. But if you are the person who literally wants to have more just manifestation in your life in general, I mentioned this earlier, and we don't have enough time to get into it, but there's this substance called electrum, which was very, very sacred to a lot of the ancient societies. It's a combination, it's an alloy of gold and silver. And the Egyptian pyramids were capped with electrum. A lot of the mummies have been found with electrum poured on their faces. Electrum was used in coinage. And to this day, I believe they use it on the Nobel Prize medals. Electrum has always been a very mystical, magical substance. And I find that when I wear electrum, that things start manifesting more quickly for me. And so I actually found an artisan here in the U.S. who makes electrum rings. And I'm gonna be taking orders if any of you guys would like to get an electrum ring until this coming Tuesday, August 22nd. And you can go to the website there to learn more about it, thesigillab.com. But if you're the kind of person who wants to manifest more stuff quickly, I've had a lot of success with electrum. Whether you get the electrum ring that I'm talking about or you just experiment on your own, whatever works for you is fine. But those are two pieces of advice that I would give you.
East of the Rockies, Daniel's with us in Florida. Hi, Daniel. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, George, and thank you. Always nice to hear your voice.
Thank you.
And even I love Mayette's questions, the way she poses them in her intellectual and thoughtful ways of setting things up.
Yeah, she's
and thank
organized.
you, Josh. Wow, what an important name in my life, and a lot of things you're saying are just impacting me. I like your attention to the subtle and different things for inspiration and to manifest. And I wanted to know about two things. And things about totems. I've heard some new things about totems and things etched into totems that have been recently found in Colombia from somebody that lives there and went to a sacred mountain or a translator. So that may not even come out for a while. But about a violet wand, if you could say anything about violet wands, you mentioned about a wand. So that's one curiosity of mine. If you could say anything to that, and then also about the sigils, and whether they're almost like a practice tattoo or something that's meaningful to us that can be added to and help to almost not necessarily with intention, but to punctuate things we've already experienced. And if you use any of that to memorialize things and also to and add to them as you go forward, do they ever transform? And the black abyss really resonated with me, and I saw a mystical sort of smoky hand with a black abyss upholding some sort of sigil that I imagined as you were describing that. So, and that's kind of what about the sigils a little more. I love the sigils and knowing about any violet wand. And thank you, George. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Well, hey, Daniel, thank you. I love your question because I get the sense that you are you're definitely grasping the magnitude of how all this stuff connects, because it is hard to sort of consolidate it all into certain words. But okay, let me break it down one by one. Yes, totems are extremely important. And as a matter of fact, I mentioned my book, The Secret Wisdom of Kukulkan, where I talked about how or I wrote about how that I believe that one of the places that had the first kind of interdimensional contact was Central and South America, and that the symbology there is much less understood than the symbology we have in the Middle East and various parts of Africa. And so, totems are definitely sigils of some kind, and they tie directly into the idea of wands, because oftentimes, like something like a totem pole is basically a big wand. And wands are important because anything that's linear just is directional. So, like, for example, if you walk up to a dog and you just suddenly point at it, most dogs will stop and look at you. And you might think, well, that's just conditioning. All right, fine. So what? You can probably walk up to a person and stop and point, and the person will stop and look at you. It's about the art and science of directing attention, and energy flows where attention goes. And so these linear things like wands, they definitely are directors of attention, and since that determines the way the energy flows, that makes them powerful. Of course, colors are only the color, but they are because of the vibration they have. So, for example, red is a lower frequency than violet. Violet is one of the highest frequencies that we're able to see, which is why you might want to look into something like Nikola Tesla's purple plates. And so a violet wand would be a very, very powerful tool. But ultimately, I believe that if you could take something like sigils and put them on something like a violet wand, especially if it had an electrum tip on it, you might have a heck of a powerful tool. And believe it or not, I'm working on creating something like that.
Well, you're doing a remarkable job with it, Josh. Thank you so much. The Coast mobile app is now available for download on iPhones and Android devices. You can become an insider directly through this app. This is a great option for our international listeners, and new users will also receive a free 2-week trial.